Saturdays are normally busy for the Colorado Springs PD, but tonight is one for the record books.
Dispatch to car 31.
31, go ahead.
There's been a shooting at Gemini's bar.
10-4 en route.
Be advised, it's a possible shootout with an Outlaw motorcycle club.
10-4.
It's the shooting in progress.
We've got 3 other cars en route. Good luck and stay safe.
Gemini's bar is very popular with bikers and biker gangs.
Stopping a gun battle with a biker gang could very well cost the responding officers their lives.
When an officer is responding to an in-progress shooting, there's a lot that goes through the officer's mind. He's worried about his safety along with the safety of innocent people. He wants to get the gunfire stopped as soon as possible.
Everybody, drop your weapons, police! Bro, watch your back! I see him!
With this person not responding to the commands being given, he's deemed to be an aggressor.
Let the gun down! Let me see your hands!
Suddenly, they hear a faint but terrifying sound.
He's reloading! Drop it now! Now! Now!
And police are trained to make quick assessments.
He is in danger, and the only way to stop that is by the use of deadly physical force.
5 miles south, Lt.Joe Kenda is spending Saturday night catching up on paperwork.
This Kenda.
The comm center says there is a major gun battle underway at Gemini's bar.
Okay.
I immediately became alarmed because Gemini's caters to outlaw bikers. It must be some kind of biker group warfare.
All right, I'll be right there. Bye.
The average person says, well, they're just a bunch of criminals. Well, not really. The majority of people who are motorcycle enthusiasts are professionals and working people who happen to love motorcycles.
To lump anybody on a motorcycle into a stereotype of a group is just ignorant. What I love most about riding my own bike is the independence of it and just being out in the open air.
1% of those enthusiasts are criminals who engage in illegal behavior. The Sons of Silence, one of these groups, is headquartered in Colorado Springs, and Gemini's is a bar that they frequent. The FBI identifies them as one of the top 10 most violent biker gangs in the U.S. There's been all kinds of bad blood between the PD and the Sons.
Gentlemen, so what's the damage?
Well, we've got 1 deceased. We've got 6 more that have been taken to the hospital, including one that Officer Rao had to take down.
Jesus. Any of our guys get hit?
Oh, thankfully, no.
So what have we got so far?
The shooting begins inside the bar. Then it moves outside, and then it moves to a restaurant parking lot immediately north of that building where the shooting continues until the police arrive and stop it.
Walking across the parking lot, Kenda observes a crime scene that looks more like a war zone.
I see an enormous number of rifle casings, and I recognize them immediately as 7.62 by 39 millimeter. This is fired out of a Kalashnikov, more commonly known as an AK-47.
We've at least got one of the AKs.
Now let's go look at the body.
Just around the corner from the Gemini's front door lies 33-year-old Stephen Fairfax.
Was he a member of the Sons of Silence?
The guy that ID'd him said that he wanted to be.
You don't automatically just become a member of the Sons of Silence. Somebody has to vouch for you.
They take a vote that they will accept you as a spec, a prospective member. He's a spec for the SOS.
Kenda starts by examining Stephen's injuries.
He's been shot 3 times, once in the neck, once in the arm, and once in the torso. Looking at the neck, I would say his spinal cord is severed, and he's dead before he hits the ground. Instantaneous.
Kenda turns his attention to the evidence surrounding the body.
380.
My first thought is the expanded casings are probably from the 9mm handgun laying in the parking lot some distance away. But then we can look at these casings and they're 380s. They come out of a 380 handgun, not a 9mm.
To Kenda, the 9mm casing suggests Stephen Fairfax fired a weapon multiple times during the shootout. But they also beg another question.
Now, where's the gun?
Kenda moves inside, where the shootout seemingly began.
It's an older bar. There's signs that there was live music being played at the time, microphone, drum set, things like that.
There are streamers around indicating it's a birthday party.
There was a lot of damage in there. Chairs knocked over, stools knocked over, bullet holes, people, blood.
It's clear that somebody had actually just fired a weapon multiple times into the ceiling.
Now, are they doing that to get everybody's attention? That would certainly do it.
Have you guys been collecting up all the casings here? What's the caliber?
A lot of 7.62 by 39 and a few 9mm.
So with the 380 rounds that we have outside, and now we have 9mm and AK-47 rounds inside, we know that there are at least 3 weapons involved in this incident.
Who did what to whom, and who started this, and who tried to finish it?
Kenda heads out to the Jim and I's patio, where patrons who didn't flee when police arrived are now gathered.
So what do you have for witnesses?
Not a lot to choose from. Everyone's claiming they were here just having a good time.
But all of a sudden it goes from party to gunfire, with no clear explanation of how it did that.
So you're the bartender?
Yeah, Susie Stoudemire.
I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Could you tell me what you saw tonight?
She begins her statement by saying that there was a birthday party that was underway for a very popular biker named Jerry Cooper. They just had a jukebox playing, but the live band hadn't gotten underway yet. Everybody's in a good mood. She is pouring everybody drinks. All of a sudden, she sees one individual with an AK-47.
Terrified, Susie ducks behind the bar and stayed put until the shooting stopped.
And then what'd you see?
There was blood everywhere. So many people were shot. It looked like something out of a horror movie or something. And then I saw my friend PK lying on the ground. And my heart just... Oh my God! It's gonna be okay, PK.
Everybody knew Paul Clan as PK. That was his nickname. He was a member of the Sons of Silence. He also was in the bar that night because he was the bar manager.
It's gonna be okay, PK.
He was described as the guy that loved his friends and took care of people. And he was the person that people could trust.
He was very protective of Jim and I in the bar.
Knowing PK is a full-fledged member of the Sons of Silence, and that Stephen Fairfax is a spec, Kenda wonders if the gang itself had been targeted.
Once a year, these outlaw biker gangs gather in the area of Aspen, Colorado, for a supposed friendly rally. They have a tendency to hate each other, and they gather for a council every year to air out their differences, kind of like biker court. And despite their promise of no trouble, there always is trouble.
This year's Aspen rally had occurred just a few weeks before tonight's bloodbath.
It really piques our interest whether or not this is related to something that possibly happened up in Aspen.
Are we going to be up to our waist in dead bikers? We need to find out if this is the opening salvo of a biker war. We're investigating a mass shooting at Gemini's bar. And given the fact that the Sons of Silence are frequent customers of this establishment, is this a biker war? What is going on here?
Aware that there was a gathering of outlaw biker gangs in nearby Aspen prior to the shooting, Kenda reaches out to the narcotics division to see if they have any additional intel.
Hey, Scott.
Lieutenant.
How you doing?
Good.
So what do you think? Sound like fallout from the bike rally a few weeks ago?
Certainly could be. Sons have been getting a lot of flack, mostly from Hell's Angels.
They tell us the Hells Angels have been moving into Colorado and encroaching on their turf. The Angels consider themselves to be the first and the best of the outlaw gang.
The Hells Angels have a history going back to the 1940s.
They came from World War II, returning veterans, Bakersfield, California, who missed the action, the brotherhood, loyalty. They started riding motorcycles, which nobody did then, and formed in groups. They were fiercely patriotic. They only rode American motorcycles.
But over time, some branches of the Hells Angels turned outlaw, seduced by the easy money of the drug trade.
And just like any enterprise, they're trying to expand their territory for their own personal gain.
So the Angels got their eye on Colorado now.
Looks like it. More territory, more drugs.
I can imagine the Sons aren't too happy about that.
The Sons are one of the smaller biker gangs, but it is widely known that they control Colorado. How dare the Hells Angels think otherwise?
Do you think it's going to be an all-out war?
I sure hope not.
Fortunately for Kenda, there's a simple way to find out.
The local chapter of the Angels is not in the Springs, it's in Denver. So we drive to Denver. We walk in the door, and all of a sudden you hear crickets.
Can we help you?
I'm sorry to interrupt. There was some trouble at a bar in the Springs last night. A place where the Sons of Silence hang out sometimes. You guys know anything about that?
We heard about it. We didn't have anything to do with that. Can't say I'm sad it happened, though.
I think maybe they're telling the truth. They tend to be kind of proud of what they do. If they were the people, they would tell you without telling you.
Well, if it wasn't you, do you know who we should talk to?
Yeah, I can't help you.
Well, if you hear anything, make sure you give us a call.
This shooting doesn't appear to be related to turf wars going on.
So it's the usual, back to the beginning. Let's start again. Who got shot? Could it be somebody with a motive against Mr. Fairfax only? And not against the Sons of Silence?
So we have to start doing a background check on him. We were able to identify Stephen's stepmom, Loretta Collins.
Yes?
Now, I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Can I ask you a few questions?
You're here to talk about Stephen?
Loretta tells us that when he graduated high school, he went to the University of North Colorado for a short period of time. And he returned to Colorado Springs, where he started to pursue more his interest into being a member of the motorcycle organization.
He always had a wild streak in him. He was having difficulty holding his life together, but the one thing he absolutely loved was his motorcycle.
Can you think of anyone that want to harm him?
You know, we hung around with a rough crowd, but he was a good person.
Well, thank you for your help.
Still unable to catch a solid lead, Kenda turns to the database for information on Mr. Fairfax.
Hey, Joe, you're not going to believe this.
What's up?
We learned that he had an interaction with the Sheriff's Department in Boulder County 6 days before his death. That is something that really piques our interest.
That was a homicide, and our only eyewitness, Stephen Fairfax.
A Marquette Spencer had been arrested for killing her estranged husband.
Just because she's in custody doesn't rule her out for being responsible.
No, it does not.
Did Marquette Spencer order a hit on Stephen Fairfax from the cozy confines of Boulder County Jail? And had the attack on Fairfax triggered the massive shootout at the Gemini Bar?
Fairfax is a witness in a homicide, and now he is dead from multiple gunshot wounds. That seems rather convenient. We have 6 people in a hospital undergoing emergency surgery, and now we're in possession of information that says Mr. Fairfax, the deceased, is an eyewitness in a recent homicide in Boulder County.
The woman charged with the Boulder County homicide is one Marquette Spencer. Kenda wonders if Marquette had Stephen Fairfax killed in order to silence him.
We don't know how critical his testimony will be to that prosecution, but we know that it's not the only time in history that some witness has been eliminated.
Boulder Sheriff's Office, this is Janice.
Hi, this is Joe Kenda in Colorado Springs.
Hey, Joe. How's it going down the Springs? You need some help from Boulder?
Yeah, I do actually. I have some questions about a homicide involving a Marquette Spencer. Can you tell me what went down?
They report that Fairfax is hanging out with Marquette when her ex-husband stops by and a bickering match ensues.
Go ahead.
All right.
How's your free
Excuse me?
I'm sick of giving you this
Giving me this?
Yeah, you ain't selling nothing.
Look, you can get out now.
You gonna kick me out of my own house?
It's not your house anymore.
Wait, whoa. Man, go the on. Come on. Go on.
You're crazy.
Mr. Fairfax ran into another room to call 911.
Hey, I need help at 16 Kane Avenue. Oh my God.
He heard gunshots. He came back outside to notice that Margaret Spencer is holding the gun and Andrew White is on the ground dying.
We've got her charged with second-degree murder. Her trial is in just a few months.
Interesting timing.
Kenda dispatches one of his detectives to the Boulder County Jail to determine if Marquette Spencer is the mastermind of the attack on Stephen Fairfax.
My name's Detective Kingsbury. I need to ask you a few questions.
Okay. I mean, I told him everything I know.
I'm sorry to inform you, ma'am, that Mr. Fairfax is dead.
Stephen's dead? What happened?
She is shocked to learn that Stephen Fairfax, her friend, is dead. She's even more shocked to learn that we would think she would somehow do something to harm him.
You think I had something to do with it?
Well, I wouldn't be here if we didn't.
Look, what I did was terrible, but it was an accident. I mean, I was out of my mind, I was high, my ex came over, and things got out of control.
So you're not denying killing Andrew White?
No.
Now, this is not the personality who wants to eliminate a witness. She's willing to tell a detective from another jurisdiction she's responsible for this crime.
Okay, I appreciate your time and help.
Hoping to learn more about what happened at the Gemini, Kenda decides to question the survivors of the shootout.
So we walk into this hospital to check on conditions on everyone that's been shot.
Excuse me.
Yes, how can I help you?
How you doing? I'm Lieutenant Kenda. I want to check on the people involved in the shooting last night.
I'm so sorry, Lieutenant, but Paul Clayton has passed away from his injuries.
40-year-old Paul Klein, known to his fellow Sons of Silence gang members as PK, had been friends with the owners of the Gemini for years and even worked there as a manager.
He was entrusted to make decisions on our behalf when we weren't there.
He was a good dude, man. There was no two ways about it. He was friendly with everybody.
He was also a very educated man. Everything that he meant to say, he said it very eloquently.
What are the odds that the others will pull through?
We have two individuals that have some very serious injuries, Eugene Bayless and Alan Daniels. There's also 3 others who have less serious injuries. Our desire is really to interview all victims in this case.
Until Kenda can question the survivors, he remains in the dark about what or who instigated the shooting.
Could they be suspects? Could they be victims? Could they be both?
Sorry, Lieutenant, but the patients are still heavily sedated from the surgery. Doctors think it's not a good idea today.
Okay, I'll try back later. Thanks for your help.
While he waits on the survivors to be cleared for questioning, Kenda asks detectives to dig into their backgrounds, starting with the man Officer Rao shot, 42-year-old Eugene Bayless.
He didn't put down the gun, which led to him being shot. So why did he not comply with the officer's orders?
Kenda assumes Eugene is also a member of the Sons of Silence.
Come in.
But a background check makes Kenda think twice.
And there's nothing, not even a parking ticket.
What?
Apparently, he's their choir boy.
It would be very unusual for one of the members not to have some kind of criminal record.
He's nobody. So why in God's name is he in this establishment with all this ammunition and an AK-47? Who is Eugene?
At least we got an address here. Let's head over there.
Kenda and his men head out to the address on file for Eugene Bayless.
It's his parents' home. They live in a rural part of the city, just east of the city limits, on a very small ranch, a few acres of ground.
Can I help you?
Mrs. Bayless?
Yes.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, but your son was involved in a shooting downtown.
Oh, my God.
I said, well, Eugene is injured. He's going to survive. Don't be alarmed.
But then we have to advise her that he was actually one of the shooters.
Well, Eugene's a good son. He's a Vietnam vet. But I know things have been harder these past few years. His wife divorced him and took the kids.
Do you know if your son owns any weapons?
Well, yeah, he does. He's got quite a collection in his room.
Would you mind if we take a look in his room?
He lives in the root cellar.
Excuse me?
It's around back. He actually likes to call it a bomb shelter.
Please.
Eugene lives in a bunker, which is 9 by 12 feet.
Excuse me.
This is where Eugene resides. No running water, no bathroom facility. Eugene, as you might say, is a little odd.
There was a lot of tubs that had guns and ammunition, a large quantity of ammunition, more than what an enthusiast might keep.
Get a load of this.
He has grenades? The Marine Corps has grenades, but they're supposed to have them. They're illegal to possess. Why do you need hand grenades, Eugene? It's apparent that this is not a gun enthusiast. This is somebody that's dangerous.
Yes?
We're looking at the background of Eugene Bayless, one of the active participants in this event, and everything about him is disturbing. We discover him to be living in a root cellar in his mother's property with an arsenal fit for a warlord
How the hell did he get all this stuff?
Not only is Eugene's cache of weapons disturbing, so are some of the illegal modifications he's made to them.
He buys a semi-automatic submachine gun legally on the marketplace. He then disassembles that weapon and converts it into full automatic.
Staring at Eugene's arsenal, Kenda sees the massacre at the Gemini bar in a whole new light.
I now believe that all my biker revenge scenarios are useless. We're dealing with a lone wolf gunman. Who knows what his motive is? Maybe he doesn't know either, but we are certainly going to find out.
Eugene, I'm Lieutenant Kenda. This is Detective Kingsbury. We need to read your rights. You have the right to remain silent.
He has an unusual look on his face. His eyes are wide open. He's going back and forth between myself and another detective. We advise him of his rights.
Do you understand these rights as I've spoken them to you?
Yes, sir.
And you're still willing to talk to us?
Absolutely. That biker caused me to do it.
Excuse me?
I just couldn't take it anymore. He pissed me off, and I wanted to confront him. So I went and grabbed my AK, and I went looking for him at that biker bar, because that's where they all hang out.
Eugene claims he went to the Gemini only to scare the man, and insists he never meant to shoot anyone.
And what happened when you got to the bar?
Do anything special or anything? Nah.
When I got inside the bar, the Sons of Silence guys, they jumped me. And we fought over my gun, and then the rifle went off. But honestly, I don't know if it hit anybody.
Eugene says he was so taken aback by the incident that he immediately left the bar, but the Sons of Silence followed him out into the parking lot.
From there, it was just like everybody was yelling and shooting at me. The bikers, they wanted me dead, and the police did too. But honestly, I've never heard a cop.
When officers get on scene, he can't put the gun down. He can't tell the officers anything. He just couldn't speak. That's why he didn't respond prior to getting shot by the police officers. Bayless's statement is very self-serving. He's placing the blame on other individuals for him walking into the bar with a weapon. What he's saying doesn't add up.
But Eugene, even if everything you're saying is true, what I don't understand is why you even went there in the first place.
I told you. It all started earlier that day, that dirtbag biker.
What's up, man? What are you looking at? What the f*** are you looking at? You got a problem?
But I'll be honest, I was shocked. I thought I was gonna die.
Wow, Eugene. So you were shot in the face twice in the same day. What are the odds?
While the injuries on Eugene's face are consistent with a gunshot wound, Kenda believes the damage was solely inflicted during the shootout with Officer Rao.
You were in the military, weren't you, Eugene?
Yes, sir. I served in Nam.
So you understand face wounds and how much they bleed? So if we were to search your vehicle right now, we'd find blood all over the place, right?
Well, not really. I think he used a BB gun.
So you didn't know this guy, just a random biker?
Like I said, I went up to Gemini's because that's where they all hang out.
This isn't a statement, so we decided to end it.
All right, thanks for your time. We'll be in touch.
Sure, okay.
By the time Kenda and his men wrap up with Eugene Bayless, doctors have given him the green light to interview the crime's other survivors.
Mr. Daniels? I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Hello.
Alan Daniels says he's a mechanic, he's a motorcycle enthusiast, he's not a member of the Sons. He considers it to be a normal Saturday night at Gemini's.
And we're having fun. There was nothing out of the ordinary that was happening.
Having a birthday party for a friend of ours.
Yeah. Have fun. Oh, yeah. And what I get married for, man. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, man.
The only Son member that was in there that night was Paul Klein, or PK, and he was there because he works there.
While Kenda speaks with Alan Daniels, one of his men is talking to another survivor in the adjoining room.
Hello, Mr. Karn, how are you? I've been better, but I'm happy to be alive.
This individual's name is Andrew Kiernan. He was sitting right outside the front door with his girlfriend, and they see a man approach with an AK-47.
Get the hell out of here.
Mr. Eugene, he's not trying to scare people. He's going to start shooting people as soon as he gets in that door. We've spoken to other witnesses, including people that were shot. We're able to piece together what transpired inside this bar on the night of this shooting.
It was filling up quickly. My brother Ron was on the door because BK was behind the bar that night. The guy came kind of barging in, had on a bulletproof vest full of ammo. AK-47.
I've never seen the man before until that night. All I remember is Paul going toward him, me going toward him.
They are incredibly alarmed. They immediately seize this man. The weapon is still pointed skyward. When the trigger is pulled, and a burst of automatic weapons fire goes into the ceiling.
He came down and he just started firing.
The automatic weapon sprayed the bar area, hitting bass player Kenneth Inman in the hand and bar regular Alan Daniels in the jaw.
Next thing I know, I'm on the floor, bleeding, trying to figure out what happened.
The next to get hit is birthday boy Jerry Cooper.
In the struggle, Klein is able to gain control of the AK-47 from Eugene.
But according to several survivors, that's when Eugene drew a second weapon.
Eugene, he's armed with his 9mm handgun. That's when PK is shot 3 times.
The witnesses tell Kenda that after shooting Paul Klein, Eugene Bayless retrieved his AK-47, exited the building, and continued shooting, making one final, truly bizarre statement on his way out the door.
Wow, that was an adventure.
It was just so fast, and I was like, how could this be happening? It was surreal. It wasn't real. This isn't happening. Is this a joke for Jerry's birthday? Is this not a really bad joke?
The shooting continues. Bikers are running out of this place, trying to get behind parked cars in 2 parking lots, and Eugene comes out with this AK, trying to hit these people that are hiding. Kiernan says he's shot in the parking lot by Eugene as he continues to blast away.
According to the survivors' statements, it's then that Stephen Fairfax pulls into the parking lot of the Gemini.
Steve Fairfax arrives on his motorcycle. He's kind of wondering what's going on because there's obvious signs of confusion going everywhere.
What the hell's going on?
Some guy over there with a machine gun shooting.
A machine gun? Let's see what I can do.
Are you crazy?
Yeah. He runs back there to try to talk some sense into the shooter.
Hey, man. You all right?
And he takes 3 gunshot wounds and falls dead in the parking lot.
With the casualties rising and no end in sight, another bystander takes matters into his own hands.
A man named Jeff Martin says he has a gun. He runs out to his van. He gets it. It's a .380 automatic. Comes back to the scene and tries to engage Mr. Bayless with that weapon.
Mr. Martin fires 5 shots from his .380 pistol at Eugene Bayless, but misses him with every shot. This finally explains where those .380 casings came from, because they fell next to Mr. Fairfax's body. Mr. Fairfax didn't have a gun. He was already dead. So no gun had been stolen. Jeff Martin had it.
Moments later, police arrive and put an end to Eugene's rampage.
Police! Everybody drop your weapons!
Our initial reaction to PK, knowing him as we do, member of the Sons, Steve Fairfax, a spec for the Sons, we make the leap that they're involved in this shooting, they're participants in this shooting, and the reality is that they're innocent people who are actually trying to save lives and pay for it with their own life.
But the investigation is far from over.
Jeff Martin had fired the .380, but we don't have Jeff Martin. He fled the scene prior to officers arrived, so we need to talk with him. It's very important to tie up this investigation to account for all the rounds that were fired and fired by who.
But Kenda is battling against the odds.
There are several Sons now wearing colors gathered at the hospital to support their friends.
You guys want justice for PK and Stephen Fairfax? You'll help us find Jeff Martin.
They make no response. They stare at us.
All right. You know where to find me.
We decided it's a long shot, but we had to ask.
Without a statement from Jeff Martin, the case against Eugene Bayless is less than airtight. But just 9 days later, an unexpected visitor shows up in Kenda's office.
Right. All right, let me know what you find out. Bye.
Is that what you're looking for?
The president of the chapter of the Sons of Silence in Colorado Springs came into my office with Jeff Martin.
Thanks, Lieutenant, for watching out for our club. It's not lost on us.
You're welcome.
PK was a hero. If you wouldn't have stepped in when you did, there'd be more people dead. We're all not bad guys.
I appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you.
With Jeff Martin's .380 revolver in hand, there's only one question left for Kenda to answer.
We have a good understanding of what happened in this bar. We don't have a clear understanding as to why.
In furthering our investigation on Eugene Bayless, we talked to his ex-wife who lives out of state.
They've been divorced for over a year.
Did you know of any conflicts Eugene had with the Sons of Silence biker gang?
No, not that I know of. I've never even heard him mention them.
Do you have any idea why you would open fire on him then?
Well, he's been an angry, vengeful person for as long as I've known him.
She went on to report that he told her many times he felt trapped in his life, that he was married with children. He sees himself as a biker, sees himself as a nomad. He could have lived a life of adventure instead of a life of drudgery.
All right, well, I appreciate the information.
No problem.
Thank you. Bye.
He's in a downward emotional spiral. He's lost his wife, he's lost his job, he's living in a concrete bunker in his parents' backyard. He's stockpiling weapons. Why is he doing that? In this cloud of depression and paranoia? The human mind is a complicated piece of machinery. As for the guy on the motorcycle who supposedly shot him in the face, I doubt that even happened. Eugene was a wannabe biker. He wanted to have an adventure, and when he wasn't accepted by them, he took his revenge on the bikers.
Eugene Bayless is formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 16 counts of attempted murder. At trial, Bayless maintains he was acting in self-defense.
The jury acquits him of all murder charges.
It was frustrating for the fact that, we had a good case. I don't know if it's based on the fact that our victims were bikers and they were viewed negatively. We feel that he's guilty, but the courts have spoken, and that's what we'll live with.
However, Eugene is convicted of possession of an illegal firearm and is sentenced to 3 years in prison.
I'll never forget his face, I know that. I will never forgive or forget what he did. I do not want to ever go through that again. That man put me through hell.
No, justice was not served in this case. PK was a good man in the end, and thanks for saving my life.
You have 2 people who died and no one was found guilty of it. You have people who loved those people, who miss those people even today. And there's no true resolution of that.
Oh, PK Klein. When you hear his name, some envision a warrior. After Saturday night, most will remember him as a hero.
This thing that happened over in Gemini's, it was an unselfish act that he did. He saved the lives of a lot of people.
Bikers are human beings. Even outlaw bikers are human beings. They're capable of moments of great courage. Stephen Fairfax, at the end of the day, was heroic in his efforts to save innocent lives. Irrespective of his history, irrespective of his involvement with the Sons of Silence, ultimately sacrifices his own life in defense of others. That is a remarkable thing.
London, winter 1992. The city moves like a machine built on routine. Trains screeching into stations, newspapers snapping open, lights blinking across a skyline that never really sleeps. But on one narrow street in East London, a silence hangs thicker than the fog. One missing woman, one alleyway, one night that will never make sense. A cold case is born, and nobody knows it yet. All they know, in the first raw hours, is that something terrible slipped past them in the dark. Her name is Anna Ward, 26 years old, graphic designer, commuter, rent payer, facing the crowd. She finishes work late in the city, December 3rd, steps out under office fluorescence, wraps a scarf around her neck, checks her watch. The CCTV above the lobby catches her last clear image. Dark coat, short hair, that slight half smile of someone already thinking about getting home, hot tea, sleep. Timestamp, 1842. After that, the certainty ends. Everything else becomes guesswork and ghosts. London in 92 is a different city. No smartphones, no social media trails, no instant alerts flashing to millions of screens. When someone disappears, it doesn't explode online. It just sinks slowly into the streets. People go missing, police say. Adults can walk away if they want. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she went to stay with a friend. Maybe. Always maybe. But that night, her flatmate stands at the window, watching the rain collect in a blur on the glass, waiting for the sound of a key in the door that never comes. The first alarm isn't sirens, it's absence. No call, no note, no Anna. Her flat is untouched, bed still made, mug from that morning still in the sink with a ring of tea drying at the bottom. Her diary is open on the table, a week of normal plans sketched in messy handwriting. Meeting 10 a.m., Mum's birthday gift, dinner with Sophie. There is no sign of running away, no dramatic goodbye scrawled in ink, no clue that she's about to become the headline she never asked to be. London woman vanishes on short walk home. Baffling disappearance stuns community. Police take the report. Missing adult, standard questions, any history of depression, relationship problems, drug use, financial trouble. The flatmate shakes her head until her neck hurts. She feels, with rising panic, that she is losing Anna one more time with every skeptical nod, every shrug of a detective who has seen too many people walk out of their lives by choice. But there's one detail they can't ignore. Anna's route home is short, predictable, painfully ordinary. From office to tube, from tube to street, from street to front door. 10 minutes on foot. Familiar pavements. Always the same. Officers retrace the path, bank station, ticket barriers, the dull hum of the escalator. They pull CCTV from the platform, the corridor, the exit. There she is again at 1902, captured in grainy monochrome, weaving through commuters, bag on her shoulder, hand in coat pocket. She taps her Oyster card, hesitates at the top of the stairs, checks something in her bag, then steps out into the December night. That's the last confirmed sighting. After that, the city swallows her whole. Cold case before it even knows it's cold. A 10-minute walk becomes a crime scene stretched over streets, shop fronts, shared doorways, and blind corners. Police knock on doors, speak to shop owners, pull tapes from security cameras mounted above off-licenses and betting shops. They build a map of flickering, unreliable frames, a figure who might be Anna at a distance, coat color matching, walking past a bus stop, another silhouette crossing a side street, head down, impossible to confirm. It's like trying to reconstruct a nightmare from fragments after waking up. The community feels it first in whispers. A poster appears at the tube entrance, missing Anna Ward. Her photo is simple, unposed, taken at some birthday or work event. She looks like anyone. She looks like everyone. That's what makes it worse. It could be your neighbor, your friend, your sister. People glance at the poster, hold the gaze for a second too long, then look away. London is used to crime, but this is different. No robbery, no body, no struggle in the street, just a gap in the timeline where a woman once existed. Detectives follow the route again at the exact time she walked it. They stand at corners, listen to the traffic, note the pools of shadow where streetlights flicker or die. A narrow alley cuts between 2 blocks of flats, a shortcut half the neighborhood uses. On one side, overflowing bins. On the other, brick stained with years of rain. Here the city feels closer, tighter, the air thick with the smell of damp cardboard and exhaust. If something happened, they think, it happened somewhere like this, fast, precise, silent. They scour the ground, the drains, the hedges. They find cigarette butts, broken glass, the usual debris of anonymous city life. Nothing to tie to Anna, nothing that screams crime scene loud enough to drown out the possibility that she might have just kept walking somewhere else into some other life. And yet the detectives can't shake it. Intuition whispers what evidence can't prove. This isn't a walkaway. This feels like a snatch, a grab, a disappearance pulled off in seconds in the blind spots between cameras and crowds. As the days tick by, the case shifts from missing person to suspected foul play. Press releases go out. Local papers pick it up. East London woman missing after commute. Family fears worst. Journalists call it mysterious. Neighbors call it terrifying. Anna's parents arrive from out of town, faces pale, voices steady in that brittle way of people clinging to hope by their fingertips. They sit in a small interview room at the station, surrounded by taped photos of their daughter, and answer questions that feel like accusations. Did she argue with anyone? Was she seeing somebody new? Did she ever talk about leaving? Outside, the city keeps moving. Rush hour doesn't stop. Buses don't pause at the corner where Anna stepped off. But slowly, word spreads. Women change routes home. They walk in pairs, in groups, keys between their fingers, glancing over shoulders. That 10-minute stretch of pavement is now infamous, a thin strip of fear drawn across a map of London. Rumors spread faster than facts. A white van, a man in a long coat, a strange car seen idling near the alley. Anecdotes pile up like false leads, each one loud, none of them solid. Back inside the incident room, detectives pin a map of the area to the wall. They mark Anna's last confirmed steps in red. They draw circles for witness sightings, question marks in the margins, time windows, probabilities. If she left the station at 1902 and never arrived home by 1915, something happened in that 13-minute gap. A timeline that's short should be a gift. Instead, it's a taunt. Every street checked, every doorway canvassed. Still no blood, no weapon, no personal item dropped in panic. Her bag, her coat, her keys, her wallet, all missing with her, clean-cut, surgical. Then comes the first weird detail. A man living in a flat overlooking the alley reports hearing a scream that night. Not a prolonged movie-style shriek, he says, just a short, sharp sound. Cut off. He didn't look out the window. It's London. People shout, people argue. But when he sees the missing poster the next day, something inside him grows cold. Could it have been her? Could that single ignored sound have been the moment a life disappeared? He tells police. They log it. Potential scream. Approximate time. 1908. Impossible to prove. Impossible to forget. Headlines sharpen. Mysterious cry in alley may hold key to missing woman case. Public interest spikes. TV crews film stand-ups at the station entrance where Anna was last seen. A reporter stands under the harsh glow of a street lamp, rain catching in the camera lights like static, and says the words that will follow this case for decades. A 10-minute walk, a crowded city, and a woman vanishes as if into thin air. No suspects, no body, no answers. Cold case language, already forming, even while the investigation is still hot. The lead detective, a man with 20 years on the force, doesn't like the phrase vanished into thin air. People don't vanish, he tells his team. People are taken, hurt, hidden. Someone saw something, someone knows something. He orders another round of house-to-house inquiries. They re-interview everyone who walked that route, everyone who was in a nearby shop, everyone who got off that train. Shifts blur, coffee cups stack. The incident room hums under fluorescent lights that never switch off. Still, the board on the wall stays stubbornly empty of suspects. And yet, beneath the exhaustion, there's a quiet, growing dread, because this case is developing a shape they recognize from nightmares and training seminars. A clean disappearance, a vulnerable window of time, no clear motive, no obvious suspect. The kind of case that starts as a local mystery, mutates into a citywide obsession, and ends up a permanent scar on the files. A cold case with a date stamp, London, 1992, unfinished business hanging in the air. Anna's absence becomes a presence of its own. Her room stays untouched. Her toothbrush is still in the bathroom. A half-finished design project sits on her desk at work, lines and colors frozen mid-idea. Friends keep expecting to see her walk in late to a gathering, apologizing, explaining some simple misunderstanding. When they hear her voicemail greeting, still active, still cheerful, it feels like a voice coming from the other side of a locked door. In the first week, police hope time is on their side. In the second, they feel it turning. By the end of the month, every day that passes without a body, without a ransom note, without a phone call, begins to feel like quicksand. The leads thin out. The tips that once poured in now trickle, then drip, then stop. What remains is a date, a route, a scream that may or may not matter, and a city that has added one more ghost to its long, crowded list. The calendar rolls from December to January, but for the people who knew Anna Ward, time doesn't move. It stalls on the night she walked out of Bank Station and never arrived home. Christmas lights go up, tinsel wraps around shop fronts, carols play in supermarkets, and every single strand of forced festivity feels like an insult. There is an empty chair at a family table. There is a stocking that doesn't get filled. There is a mother who keeps turning her head at the sound of footsteps in the hall, even though she knows deep down that the person she's waiting for is somewhere between missing and gone. For the police, the first 30 days are the critical window. After that, the language changes. Fresh leads become old lines of inquiry. Interviews become re-interviews. Hope becomes routine. Still, they push. They expand the search zone beyond the neat red circles on the wall map. They send dive teams into a canal that runs a few streets away from Anna's route, muddy water closing over black wetsuits and yellow helmets as divers sweep the bottom with gloved hands. Shopping trolleys, tires, rusted bikes rise to the surface, dripping and ugly. But no body, no coat, no bag, no trace. Officers fan out into parks, railway sidings, scrubland at the edge of industrial estates. Boots crunch over frost, breath smokes in the cold air, radios crackle. In ditches and hedgerows they expect, dread, to find something, a shoe, a scarf, a scrap of fabric that matches the clothing in Anna's last known images. They find nothing that fits. The city, for all its noise, is eerily quiet on this one point. It refuses to give her back. It refuses even to admit it took her. The media senses the shape of a headline that won't go away. Cold case in the making, one reporter mutters off camera, watching detectives tape off the entrance to the alley for the third time in a month. Newspapers run montage pieces. Smiling photo of Anna, shot of the alley, distant frame from CCTV, tearful parents outside the station. They use words like chilling, unthinkable, mysterious. They print timelines in boxed graphics. 1842 office exit, 1902 station sighting, 1908 possible scream. After that, blank space, a black hole where the rest of a life should be. Phone lines at the incident room light up, anonymous tips. I saw her on a bus. I think she was in my local last week. I heard she ran off with a man. The majority are noise, static, the strange compulsion of people to insert themselves into tragedy. But some details are specific enough to take seriously. A taxi driver calls to say he was flagged down near the alley by a man matching a vague description, tall, dark coat, nervous, around the time Anna vanished. The man gave an address, then canceled, said he'd walk instead. At the time, it was nothing. Now, under the harsh bulbs of hindsight, it looks like it might have been something. They bring the driver in, sit him down with a mug of station tea and a sketch artist. Faces materialize from memory under soft pencil strokes, lines of age, angle of jaw, a hairstyle half remembered. The resulting composite is familiar and useless at the same time. The generic face of a man you might see 100 times a day on the underground, on buses and queues. Dark hair, average nose, no scars, no tattoos, no distinctive markers. Attach it to 1,000 missing posters and you still end up with one phrase. Could be anyone. One tabloid runs it under a brutal headline. Is this London's phantom commuter predator? Fear amplifies. Suddenly, every lone woman on a platform feels watched. Every passerby in a dark coat looks like the sketch. Men who walk home alone find people crossing the street to avoid them. The police field complaints from citizens convinced their neighbor, co-worker, ex-partner looks exactly like the guy in the paper. Detectives drown in false positives. The face that might be important is buried under the weight of all the faces it resembles. Behind closed doors, the investigation takes a sharper, more intimate turn. Statistically, most harm comes from someone the victim knows. So they look inward. Who was Anna to other people? Who did she fight with, laugh with, love? They start with the obvious, her ex-boyfriend. They drag his name out of phone records, letters, conversations with friends. He's interviewed, then interviewed again. Where were you that night? Who can confirm it? What did you argue about last time you spoke? He answers, tight-lipped but consistent, at home, alone, then at a pub later with friends who back up his story. They check his bank transactions, his travel card, his work records. Everything lines up. He looks distressed, not guilty. They let him go. They keep him in the file. Coworkers cycle through the station interview rooms, clutching coats, glancing at taped photographs on the walls. Some cry, some don't. One colleague, a senior designer, admits he walked part of the way with Anna that evening, then peeled off for a different line. He is grilled harder than he expected. Did she say she was meeting anyone? Did she seem scared, distracted, uneasy? He repeats over and over, no, no, no. She joked about the cold. She mentioned a deadline. She checked the time, nothing else. It was the most ordinary conversation in the world, until it turned into the last. Then there's the flatmate, closest thing to a sister in London, the one who reported her missing. In cases like this, detectives know it's often the closest circle that hides secrets. They search the flat from top to bottom, take away diaries, letters, photos. They scrutinize the flatmate's timeline. Could she have followed Anna, ambushed her, dumped the body, cleaned up, then played the role of worried friend? It feels wrong. It feels desperate. But they have to ask. They have to consider every angle, even the ones that taste bitter. The flatmate sits under fluorescent light, answering questions that cut like blades. Did you ever fight over men? Money? Did Anna ever come home with injuries, bruises, unexplained marks? Did she dabble in anything risky, drugs, dangerous people, late-night circles you didn't understand? The flatmate's answers are a litany of normal. We argued about dishes, rent, who ate the last yogurt. We laughed more than we fought. She wasn't reckless, she was careful, and still she's gone. The detectives can't find a crack in her story. They move on. But the suspicion lingers in the air like smoke that never fully clears. Weeks turn into months. Forensics, limited compared to what will exist decades later, run out of things to test. Fibers, soil samples, partial fingerprints lifted from railings and doors along Anna's route. All cataloged, all compared, all inconclusive. There is no smoking gun. There isn't even a warm bullet casing, just a bag of maybe clues that refuse to assemble into a picture. Then, just as the case threatens to flatline, a call comes in that doesn't fit the usual pattern. It's late at night, the station half quiet. An anonymous male voice, distorted not by technology but by sheer, palpable fear. He doesn't give his name. He doesn't wait to be prompted. He speaks in a rush. You're looking in the wrong place. It wasn't the alley. It was the car. Before the operator can ask what car, where, who, the line goes dead. The call is traced as far as a public phone box 2 miles away. By the time officers arrive, it's empty, smeared with fingerprints from 100 unknown hands. The car. The phrase loops in the detectives' heads. They go back to the CCTV, to the jagged snapshots of traffic near the station exits and side streets. Amid the grain and blur, they find something they missed the first time. A dark saloon car creeping along a side road parallel to Anna's usual route at around 19:05, braking just before the mouth of the alley. Its half in shadow, registration plate partly flared out by glare. They enhance, zoom, fail, try again. Eventually, they scrape 3 clear characters from the plate. 3 out of 7. Not enough for certainty, enough to start a storm. They run combinations, permutations, every vehicle with plates that could match those 3 letters in that order. Hundreds. They cross-check with addresses near the scene, known offenders, people with violent histories. The list shrinks, but not enough. One name jumps out. A local man with previous arrests for assaults on women. Charges that collapsed when witnesses backed out or disappeared. He owns a similar car. He lives a 10-minute walk from the alley. He works nights. He has no alibi for the time Anna vanished. When they knock on his door, he answers with the detached calm of someone used to seeing police on his doorstep. He smiles too easily. He invites them in. The flat is neat, almost sterile. No immediate trophies, no obvious traces of violence. On paper, he's a loner, quiet, keeps to himself. Neighbors use that phrase that sends a chill through every detective. Bit odd, but never thought he'd be capable of something like that. They bring him in, sit him down, press record. The interview is a dance of accusations and denials. He says he drove that route most nights. He says he slows by the alley because the turn is tight. He says he knows nothing about Anna, her disappearance, the posters with her face on them. His car is searched inch by inch. Fibers are collected, hairs lifted, seats stripped. The forensic team works like surgeons. But in 1992, DNA is a blunt instrument compared to what it will be. There's no obvious blood, no visible trace of a struggle. Without a body to match to, without a definitive profile, the science can only whisper possibilities, not shout conclusions. They release him because they have to. No charge, no confession. But, informally, around desks cluttered with case files and empty coffee cups, officers call him our guy. Their instincts cling to him. He becomes the gravitational center of their suspicion, even if the evidence refuses to orbit. Word bleeds into the community. Suddenly, this man can't walk into a shop without the air changing. Conversations stop. People cross the street. Kids are pulled inside when he turns the corner. No court has named him anything, but the court of rumor, of fear, of grief, passes its own sentence. He feels eyes on him, hot, hostile. And if he is innocent, this is a second kind of prison. If he is guilty, it's still not enough, because he is free. The case begins to fray. Detectives are rotated, reassigned, pulled onto fresh crimes that come with warm bodies and immediate political pressure. The lead investigator fights to keep resources, arguing that you don't abandon a case like Anna's just because the trail has cooled. But budgets are real. Staffing is finite. Files from new murders, new robberies, new assaults stack up at the door. In a city like London, tragedy has a waiting list. Anna's parents refuse to let her disappear quietly. They do interviews, stand under the hot glare of studio lights, hold up photos. Someone knows what happened, her father says, voice shaking. We're asking, begging, for them to come forward. We don't care about why. We just want to bring our daughter home. The clip airs on national news. Switchboards get another brief surge of calls. A psychic claims she can see water, darkness, a tunnel. A man insists he saw Anna on a ferry to France. Another swears she served him in a cafe up north. None of it holds. Hope becomes a series of collisions with dead ends. As months bleed into a year, the word cold starts appearing in internal memos. Cold case. Not solved, not closed, but resting, drifting, a label that sounds clinical, neutral, but feels like ice settling over the people who still wake up thinking about Anna. The incident room is eventually dismantled. The photos come down from the wall. The map with its red circles is rolled up, stored. The core of the investigation is condensed into boxes, statements, transcripts, photos, lab reports, thin slivers of film. Each box is given a number, a location, filed, stacked, forgotten by everyone except the ones who can't forget. One detective, though, refuses to let it slide into the archive in his mind. He takes a copy of the case summary home, reads it on nights when sleep won't come. The numbers, the times, the distances. 13 lost minutes. 1 suspected vehicle, 1 suspected man. A scream no one saw. He walks the route on his own, years later, long after the posters have peeled off the walls. The alley looks the same. The streetlights hum. People hurry past. Ghosts inside coats and scarves. Life has moved on. But for him, for Anna's family, for a small circle of people bound by absence, the case is not a story from the past. It's a wound that never quite closes. The city forgets in layers. New crimes, new scandals, new headlines cover the old ones. The phrase London 1992 starts to sound like distant history, almost nostalgic. But under the surface, in an evidence room where dust settles on cardboard lids, a box waits, marked with a familiar name, a familiar date, a familiar word scribbled in dark ink, unsolved. Years pass. The posters with Anna Ward's face curl at the edges, then vanish entirely, replaced by adverts, graffiti, the next wave of missing people. New commuters spill out of Bank Station every evening, never knowing that one of the city's coldest ghosts stepped through those same barriers and never made it home. Flats are relet. Shops change hands. The alley is still there. It always is. Brick doesn't forget, even when people do. The man the detectives once called our guy fades back into the crowd. His car gets older, then disappears from registration records. Sold, scrapped, exported, nobody knows. His file stays thick, but stagnant. The detective who walked the route at night is promoted, then shunted sideways, then quietly retired. His box of private notes ends up in a loft, under old coats and forgotten furniture. One more life moving on, away from that narrow strip of East London pavement where a routine commute turned into a permanent question mark. But cold doesn't mean dead, it just means waiting. By the late 1990s, policing is shifting, databases grow, computers hum louder in back offices, DNA moves from whispered experimental promise to standard tool. Cases once thought impossible start to crack open with a single hair, a single flake of skin. Cold case units become more than an idea. They become departments with names on doors, staffed by detectives who specialize not in fresh blood on fresh tarmac, but in old wounds archived and numbered. In a basement evidence room, an officer in a blue paper gown lifts a cardboard box from a metal shelf. The label is faded, the ink smudged. He wipes away dust with the edge of his sleeve and reads the words out loud, almost without meaning to. Ward Anna, 1992, missing, suspected homicide. He doesn't remember the case. He was a child when it happened, but the phrase suspected homicide on a box with no conviction attached has its own gravity. He feels it in his hands. He logs it onto a trolley with others, ready for review. Upstairs, a new detective inspector takes over the cold case unit, younger than the old guard, sharper around the edges, fascinated by the idea that the past can still move. She believes in science in a way previous generations never could. To her, every unsolved file is a locked safe, and advancements in technology are fresh combinations waiting to be tried. She flips open the ward case, reads the summary quickly, eyes moving fast over typed lines. Female, 26, commuter, last seen exiting bank station, narrow time window, suspect vehicle, suspect male, no body, no resolution. Something in it hooks her. Neat route, short distance, so many small contained variables. We should have had you, she thinks, staring at the last known image of Anna walking through grainy CCTV gray. She calls her team in, no grand speeches, just a tight directive. We're going to run this with 21st century eyes. Everything that can be retested gets retested. Every statement that can be reread gets reread. Don't assume someone smarter than you already thought of it. They were working with what they had. We've got more. Evidence bags, sealed since the early 90s, are laid out in a lab that hums with fluorescent light and machine noise. Gloves snap, labels are checked, cross-checked, fibers scraped from the suspected car back then, strands of hair from seat fabric, skin cells trapped under door handles. Each tiny fragment that looked like nothing in 1992 now glitters with possibility. The forensics team takes samples with almost reverent care, feeds them into machines that didn't exist when the case was new. Sequences are read, patterns traced, profiles built. They know it won't be instant. Cold case science moves at its own pace, dependent not just on the DNA in the bag, but on who else has had their profile added to the national database since. Prisoners, convicts, new arrestees, pieces of a puzzle that keeps expanding year after year. The lab promises results in weeks, maybe months. Meanwhile, the unit works the human side. Statements from decades ago are pulled from files and scanned into screens. The detective inspector reads the original notes about the scream from the flat overlooking the alley. She can almost see the man at the window, pausing for a fraction of a second at the sound, then deciding it's nothing. One small dismissal that will haunt him for the rest of his life. She marks his name, wonders where he is now. Still in that flat, moved away, dead. She assigns an officer. Track him down. I want to know if he still stands at windows listening to the night. Old colleagues, ex-boyfriends, flatmates, witnesses, names that once filled the front pages now reduced to lines in a file. Get calls that start the same way. I'm ringing about the Anna Ward case. We're looking at it again. On the other end of the line, there's always a pause. Time collapses. People who haven't thought about that winter in years suddenly smell again the cold rain, the damp wool of their coats, the coffee in the station waiting room. Some voices break, some harden, trauma calcifies in different ways. The flatmate, older now, answers from a different city. New job, new flat, a life built on top of an old hole. When she hears the name, it splits her in two. Part of her is back in that cramped living room, staring at the clock, imagining footsteps on stairs. She agrees to talk. She tells the detective inspector what she told the original team. The normal day, the missing arrival, the way the air changed the moment she realized the key in the door wasn't coming. But memory is a strange thing. Time wears away the edges, but sometimes it also exposes new layers. There was something else, she says quietly. I didn't think it mattered then. A week before Anna vanished, a note had been shoved under the door of their flat. Handwritten, blocky letters, no signature. Not a threat exactly. More like a warning or a taunt. You shouldn't walk home alone at night. Someone's watching. They laughed it off. Urban creepiness. A prank, maybe from a neighbor who thought he was funny. The note went into the bin. Never mentioned to the original detectives because it seemed random, disconnected, almost embarrassing to bring up. Now, in the cold case unit, it lands like a weight. The inspector's pen freezes. Can you describe the handwriting, she asks. Anything about the paper? The flatmate tries, reaching back through more than a decade. White. A bit creased. Capital letters. The detective swears under her breath. If that note still existed, if it had been bagged, she could have run touch DNA on it. Lifted skin cells from the edge where fingers held it. Now it's landfill gone. A tiny, careless decision with huge potential cost. One more reminder that in 1992, the future's tools weren't even a rumor. Still, the detail matters. It suggests stalking, surveillance, not random. Someone had been watching the route, the door, the pattern long enough to write a note. Someone took satisfaction in the knowledge. They add possible pre-offense communication to the board. They go back through earlier reports of harassment or strange behavior in the area that year. Men following women, cars crawling behind pedestrians, phone calls breathing down lines. Most are vague, unspecific, lost in time, but one stands out. 6 months before Anna's disappearance, a woman reported being followed from the same station along a similar route by a driver who kept pulling ahead, stopping, waiting for her to pass, then doing it again. When she finally confronted him, he smiled and drove off. She gave a description of the car and the man. At the time, it went nowhere. No one cross-referenced it with the later missing person. Now, the cold case team lays the two reports side by side. Same model of vehicle, same vague profile of the driver, same strips of road under sodium streetlights. They call the woman in. She's shaken that anyone remembered that the complaint she filed and then tried to forget is back in play. Sitting across from the detective inspector, she describes the night with an almost painful clarity. The fear in her stomach, the decision to keep her keys in her fist, the way the driver stared, too long, too fixed, like he was choosing. When she walked faster, the car crawled. When she slowed, it idled. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't lost, she says. He was hunting. That's what it felt like. Can she remember his face? Parts of it. Dark hair, maybe late 30s, a little older than her at the time, no beard, no glasses, a smile that didn't reach the eyes. They show her the old composite sketch from the anonymous taxi driver lead. She frowns. Could be, she says. Could also be half the men in London. It's not the confirmation they want, but the pattern tightens. Predatory behavior, same hunting ground, same car, months apart. The detective inspector circles back to the original prime suspect, the local man with the history of attacks. She reads everything, his juvenile record, the adult charges that slipped through the system when witnesses withdrew, the notes made by the first team, the way his car's movements roughly matched the blurred registration on the CCTV, the way he smiled when they knocked on his door, the easy lies, or were they truths? That's the problem with cases this old. The line between hunch and evidence erodes. She orders a full background check on him in the years since. New addresses, new jobs, new complaints. The computer spits out a timeline of movement, a couple of minor public disorder incidents, a fight outside a bar, a move to a different borough than another. Nothing that screams hidden killer. But there's one detail that drags a finger up her spine. In the mid-2000s, he left the UK entirely, relocated, new country, new life, right after the national DNA database expanded to include more categories of offenders. Coincidence, the rational part of her says. People move. The darker part whispers a different headline. Suspected predator flees as net tightens. She screens previous international requests for assistance. Did he come to anyone's attention overseas? That will take time. Meanwhile, the lab quietly works on the old fibers and hairs. Nights, the inspector sits at her desk long after others have gone home, listening to the low hum of the building. She studies the map of that route, reprinted from the original. Her finger traces the path from station to home, so short, so cruelly ordinary. She imagines the car crawling, slipping parallel, headlights off, watching. She imagines a door opening, a voice offering a lift, a hand grabbing. Quick, confident, practiced. She thinks about how the human brain protects itself by saying, "That would never happen to me. I'd see it coming. I'd fight. I'd get away." Then she looks at the empty line where Anna's life stops and knows the truth. Sometimes there is no warning. Just bad luck, bad timing, and bad people. The cold case unit isn't glamorous. There are no press conferences, no flashing lights, just paper and patience. Still, rumors filter up to the surface. "They're looking at that 92 thing again," someone says to a journalist over a drink. A short piece appears in the local paper. Police re-examine notorious 1992 disappearance. A photo of Anna, older now in the way old photos somehow age with you, runs next to a quote from an unnamed source. Advances in forensic technology could unlock fresh leads. The community that once lived in the shadow of the case feels the echo. People who were children at the time remember being warned not to walk alone, not to cut through the alley. They remember the hushed tone adults used when saying her name. Now, as grown-ups, they read the article on their phones, on trains, in offices, and feel a familiar chill. A story they thought belonged to the past is crawling back into the present. In an office far from London, in a different country entirely, a man with dark hair and tired eyes catches a glimpse of a headline online. London cold case revived. He scrolls past, then back up. There's a name he hasn't heard in years, a date, a street he used to drive down every night. He tells himself it doesn't matter, it's old news. He slams the laptop shut anyway, heart beating a little faster. Old cases, he thinks, should stay buried. Bones and questions both. Back in the lab, a machine beeps. A technician leans over a readout that is, to most people, just lines and letters. To her, it's a voice from 1992, finally clearing its throat. There's enough material, she realizes, heart speeding, enough degraded but readable DNA from the fabric of the old car seat to build a partial profile. Not complete, not perfect, but something real, something that can be run against millions of stored samples in a database that didn't exist when Anna walked out of the station. She tags the file, encrypts it, sends it up the chain. Somewhere in the humming servers of the national system, the old and the new begin to scan past each other, ghosts and suspects passing in digital silence, looking for a match that, if it exists, will crack open a mystery that has haunted London for more than a decade and turn a line on a dusty box from unsolved into something far more explosive. The match doesn't arrive with a fanfare. It appears as a line on a screen in a windowless room, a quiet notification blinking at the bottom of a monitor while the technician sips lukewarm coffee. One partial DNA profile from a car seat sampled in 1992. One partial DNA profile from the national database, added years later. Not identical, not random, close. Too close to ignore. A familial hit. Blood to blood. Someone in the system is related to whoever sat in that car when it mattered. The technician calls the detective inspector. No preamble, just the kind of sentence that turns stomachs and careers. We may have a break on the Ward case. The inspector is out of her chair before the line goes dead, walking fast, then running, heartbeat matching the slap of her shoes on the corridor floor. She leans over the screen, reads the details, and feels the past tilt. The hit is against a man arrested 3 years earlier in a different part of the country. A burglary gone wrong, a fight with the homeowner, blood spilled, cuffs snapped on. During processing, a DNA sample was taken, logged, forgotten by everyone except the database. Now lines of code have drawn a thread between that man and the ghost of someone who sat in a dark saloon car near an East London alley the night Anna vanished. Not him, the system says, but close enough to be family. Father, son, brother, uncle. The machine can't tell. The machine doesn't care. It just rings the alarm. They pull his file. Name, age, address. A blurred custody photo that shows a man in his 20s with wary eyes and a chipped tooth. He was out in months, sentence served. On paper, he is small time. Break-ins, thefts, drunken brawls. Nothing like the clean surgical terror of a disappearance. But violence is a spectrum, the inspector knows. Some men start with doors and move to people. She calls for a briefing. The cold case squad gathers, chairs scraping, notebooks opening. The inspector points at the board. We've got a familial match between the 92 car sample and this man. She taps his photo. He was 11 years old when Anna vanished. Too young to be the one behind the wheel. But someone in his bloodline was there. We find his family. We step into the orbit of whoever took her. They run his background hard. Birth records, school addresses, previous known associates. Up comes the father, a name that means nothing at first glance, then hits like a delayed punch when someone cross-references it with the ancient suspect list. Same surname, same initial, same street as the original Our Guy, the man the first team eyed, questioned, released, the one with the dark saloon car and the easy smile. The computer screen doesn't blink, doesn't smirk, doesn't say told you so. It just sits there, showing what 20 years of technology and patience have finally confirmed. Their old suspect wasn't just a hunch. He was standing on the edge of the truth the whole time. The room shifts. Murmurs rise. Someone curses under their breath. The inspector feels the weight of 2 decades land on her shoulders and the shoulders of a retired detective somewhere who will spend a long, sleepless night staring at his ceiling, replaying every decision he made in 1992. They thought they had him. They were right. They just couldn't prove it. Where is he now? The inspector asks. The answer comes back in 3 words that harden the air. Not in country anymore. He left years ago. A one-way flight, a job abroad, a rented room in a foreign city. But he didn't vanish. Paperwork follows everyone. There are traces, employment forms, rental agreements, passport renewals. They trace his path across borders, a quiet migration under the radar. He chose places with sun, with anonymity, with streets where he could be just another middle-aged man at a cafe table. Distance, he must have thought, would keep the past at bay. He didn't account for DNA. The inspector opens a channel with foreign authorities navigating the slow, heavy machinery of international cooperation, requests for assistance, legal frameworks, data sharing agreements written in dry legalese over a story dripping with dread. Somewhere in another country's police server, a new file opens under his name, suspected in connection with historic homicide. London, 1992. The phrase cold case translates easily. Every city has its ghosts. While they wait, the cold case team turns back to the local side. They re-interview the son, now in his 30s, older, harder, the chipped tooth long since repaired, but the same wary gaze. He's brought in under a pretext first, follow up on an old conviction, administrative detail, then they slide a photo across the table. A woman in her 20s, dark coat, scarf, the kind of simple, unremarkable beauty that would never have made her stand out until the city learned her name. "Do you recognize her?" the inspector asks. He looks down, then up, shakes his head slowly. "No, should I?" "That's Anna Ward," she says. "She disappeared in 1992. We think someone who shares your DNA was in a car connected to her disappearance. There's only a short list of people that could be." Something moves behind his eyes. Not recognition, not guilt. Something older, Fear, maybe, of a father, of a past, of memories he's spent years pushing down. The tape rolls. The room listens to his breathing. I was a kid, he says eventually. Back then, I don't remember anything. The inspector doesn't let him off that easily. You remember where you lived? He nods. You remember your dad's car, the dark saloon? He flinches just slightly. Enough. It was just a car, he mutters. Was it? She presses. Did he ever take you for drives at night? Sit outside places? Watch people? He stares past her at the wall. His jaw works. He'd go out. Late. Sometimes take the car. Sometimes I'd be in bed when he left. In bed when he got back. I don't know what he did. Parents don't tell kids everything. Did he ever come home different? She asks. Angry, excited, quiet. Did he ever make you scared without touching you? The silence is its own answer. The sun chews on the inside of his cheek, eyes reddening. He was always... He stops. Chooses another word. Unpredictable. The inspector slides another photo across. This time it's the old composite sketch, the one built from a taxi driver's hazy memory in '92. Does this look like him? She asks. The sun stares. The paper might as well be vibrating. It's not a perfect likeness. It never is. But there's enough there. The set of the jaw, the planes of the face, the hair. He shuts his eyes for a second, as if that will erase it. When he opens them, the sketch is still there. So is the camera. So is his voice, recorded, waiting. It could be, he whispers. It could be him. Not a confession, not hard evidence, but another layer of pressure on a story that's no longer static. The inspector files it in her mind, along with all the other could be and maybe that have clung to this case like mist. Foreign police finally respond. They've located him. Different country, different language, same man. He's older now, hair thinner, posture slumped. The photo they send shows a face that has sagged with time but hasn't softened. The eyes are the same, flat, assessing, like they are always measuring the size of the person in front of him against whatever plans run behind his gaze. They can't just arrest him on a hunch and a partial familial DNA hit. They need more, so they start to build. The inspector orders a full forensic re-examination of Anna's old flat, the alley, anything that was sealed, stored, or left untouched since '92. Some things are gone. Buildings have been renovated, plaster replaced, doors changed. But some relics remain. In a storage unit leased by the original investigation, they find a box that wasn't logged with the main evidence, left behind in the rush of closing an incident room. Inside, there's a bag of items collected from the flat's communal hallway that never made it into the central file. Junk mail, flyers, scrap paper, a piece of envelope torn with a line of blocky capital letter handwriting on it. It's not the original note warning about walking home alone. That one is lost forever. But this fragment, addressed to another resident, written in the same strange, rigid style the flatmate remembers, could be a sibling to it. Enough ink, enough fibers, enough for modern forensics to tease microscopic traces from the places a pen pressed, a hand held. The lab goes to work. They lift a partial print from the envelope edge. Faint, smudged, useless in '92. Now, enhanced, digitized, filtered, it reveals ridge lines that can be compared against more advanced digital records. Another partial profile of DNA clings to the corner where the paper was torn, the kind of thing old forensic textbooks used to call hopeless. To today's machines, it's thin but not silent. The inspector watches through the glass as texts work under magnifiers, every movement deliberate. She thinks of how close this envelope came to being thrown out, written off as irrelevant. How many cases live or die on accidents so small you could miss them by blinking? The cold case label hides that randomness. It sounds like something froze. In truth, it was always moving, just under the surface, just out of sight. Days later, the lab calls her in. They've done everything they can. The print, run through national and international records, is too partial to give a direct hit. But the DNA, combined with the earlier sample from the car, sharpens the picture. The same family, the same branch. The odds of both profiles belonging to unrelated individuals are astronomically low. Statisticians phrase it in numbers, scientific, detached. To the inspector, it sounds like a whisper from 1992 growing louder. It was him. It was him. It was him. They compile a dossier thick enough to make a judge's eyebrows lift. Old suspect interviews, new forensic reports, the familial DNA match, the stalking complaint from 6 months before the disappearance, the anonymous "it was the car" call, the son's reluctant confirmation that the sketch could be his father, the sudden emigration after database rules changed. The inspector doesn't see a random scattering of coincidences. She sees a pattern that's been trying to resolve itself for over a decade. With the paperwork in place, they move. An extradition request is filed. Foreign officers briefed on the stakes are tasked with picking him up quietly, without giving him time to bolt or destroy anything that might still exist in whatever life he's chosen elsewhere. They knock on his door early in the morning when human defenses are low. He answers in a faded t-shirt, blinking in the light, surprised to find authority wearing a different badge but speaking the same language of warrants and rights. In the interview room abroad, he plays the same role he did in '92, polite, cooperative, confused. "I don't know why you're asking me about some girl from London," he says. "It was a long time ago. I didn't do anything." Translation echoes in the room, bouncing his words into a different tongue and back again until they sound even thinner. They take a fresh DNA sample. This time the technology is ready. No partials, no guesswork, a full clear profile. It's transmitted back to the UK, fed into the system, and set against the ghost profiles from the car seat and the envelope scrap. The comparison isn't dramatic, just lines climbing to meet one another on a screen, peaks aligning, markers lighting up. To a layperson, it would look like abstract art. To the forensics team, it's a siren. Direct match. The same man who sat behind the wheel near the alley. The same man who handled the envelope in Anna's building. The same man who smiled through an interview in 1992 and walked out untouched. The inspector reads the report, feels a cold electric anger rise in her chest. This isn't just about justice, it's about time stolen from everyone. The detectives who felt they failed, the family who never buried their daughter, the city that walked for years with an invisible predator among them. Now she has what her predecessors didn't. A bridge built of nucleotides and probability strong enough to walk a charge across. But DNA is a key, not the whole door. They still don't have Anna's body, no scene with blood on walls, no weapon with his fingerprints. They have to build a narrative a jury can believe. A man who stalked women near the station, watched their routines, wrote anonymous notes, hunted in a car he drove every night, a scream in an alley, a young woman who vanished between cameras, a suspect whose DNA sits where it never had any innocent reason to be. Back home, the news leaks before the press office can control it. 1992, London cold case suspect identified by DNA, a headline screams online. Shock breakthrough after more than a decade. Comment sections explode. People who were teenagers back then write long posts about remembering the posters, the fear, the warnings. Anna's name trends for a brief, sharp moment, pulled out of the filing cabinet of history and thrown into the global feed. In a quiet house, Anna's parents get a call. They sit at the same kitchen table, older, smaller somehow, as the inspector explains what they finally have. She doesn't use legal jargon. She chooses simple, brutal words. "We've got a DNA match to a man we believe took Anna," she says. "He's alive. He's in custody. We will do everything we can to bring him back here to stand trial." Her mother closes her eyes. Her father grips the table so hard the veins in his hand stand out. It's not joy that moves across their faces. It's something darker, stranger, relief wrapped in grief, dipped in rage. Because this breakthrough doesn't rewind anything. It doesn't give them back the years. It doesn't tell them where their daughter is or what was done to her or how long she was afraid. It just points at a man and says, him, start with him. The inspector knows this is only the beginning of a new chapter, not the final line. Extradition has to go through. Lawyers will circle. Evidence will be attacked. Questions will come that she can't yet answer. Where is the body? What exactly happened in those final missing minutes? But for a case that sat in a box labeled unsolved, forgotten dust on cardboard, this is an earthquake. A city that once shrugged and said she vanished into thin air now has a name, a face, a set of fingerprints, a strand of DNA that refuses to lie. The past, dragged into the present by science and stubbornness, is about to walk into a courtroom and stare back at a man who thought he'd outrun 1992. The flight that carries him back to London cuts through cloud like a blade, but he sleeps most of the way, or at least pretends to. The officers escorting him watch the rise and fall of his chest, the slack jaw, the way his hands twitch now and then as if chasing something in dreams. They wonder silently what he sees when his eyes are closed. An alley, a car, a young woman stepping into the orbit of his routine, or nothing. Maybe men like him don't dream at all. He lands under a gray sky that could be any day from the last 30 years. London hasn't changed as much as he hoped. Different phones, different adverts, but the bones of the city are the same. Roads, bridges, the low hum of traffic. For a second, as he's walked through a quiet side entrance at the airport, he lifts his head and inhales the smell of wet tarmac, jet fuel, rain. Memory flickers, 1,000 nights of coming and going, never imagining one day he'd return in cuffs. They bring him to a station not far from where the original incident room once buzzed. The old walls with their pin boards and maps are gone, replaced by slicker surfaces, more screens, more cameras. But the sound is the same. Footsteps, phones, the low murmur of voices. Officers who weren't even born when Anna vanished turn to look as he passes. They know his name from briefings, from the headlines that flared and then quieted under media blackout. They know, without saying it, that this is history walking through their corridor. In the interview room, he sits down like he's done it before. Maybe he has. The table, the chair, the camera in the corner. They don't rattle him. He rests his cuffed hands in front of him, expression calm, almost bored. When the detective inspector steps in, file under her arm, she studies him for a heartbeat longer than necessary. This is the man whose shadow has stretched over her case files for years without a body. Flesh and bone now, wrinkles at the eyes, a small scar near the lip, a human, not a monster from myth. Somehow that makes it worse. She reads him his rights. He signs. The tape starts. A digital timestamp appears on the tiny monitor. Date, time, place. The present. Then she speaks the words that connect everything in the room to a night decades ago. Anna Ward, December 1992, Bank Station, East London Alley, cold case, DNA. At first he plays confusion like a rehearsed part. That was a long time ago, he says, voice steady. I don't remember much about it. I don't know this woman. The inspector slides a photo across anyway. Anna, caught in a candid shot, eyes half turned toward someone else, unaware that this image will one day be held like evidence, like a relic. Look at her, the inspector says. She left work, got off at bank, walked toward home. Our cameras put your car on a side street near her route. Our forensic teams put your DNA inside that car. They also put your DNA on an envelope in her building. You lived nearby. You fit witness descriptions. You left the country when our database got teeth. Tell me again you don't remember much about it. He stares at the photo longer than he intends to. There's a flicker, familiarity, irritation, something that shows he doesn't like being confronted with faces tied to dates and places he's tried to erase. Then he looks up. The smile is faint, mechanical. Lots of people lived there. Lots of people got in my car. You can't prove anything from that. She lets the lie hang in the air for a moment, heavy and thin at the same time. We can prove more than you think, she says quietly. We can prove you drove those streets night after night. We can prove you stalked women from that station, rolling behind them in your car. We can prove you wrote notes and slid them under doors. We can prove you were in the orbit of Anna Ward the week before she vanished. We can prove you lied to my colleagues in 1992 when you said you rarely used that car and never drove near that alley. We can prove, through science, that the odds of your DNA being in those two places by chance are essentially zero. You have one opportunity to tell your version of the story. After that, all that's left are the facts. He laughs once quietly. If you had so much proof, you wouldn't be asking me to talk, he says. You'd just charge me and be done with it. We will, she replies. We're offering you a chance to explain yourself, to explain what happened, to tell her family where she is. The word family lands. It always does, even with men who think they've hollowed themselves out. He shifts in his chair, cuffs clinking softly. I'm not saying another word without a solicitor, he says finally. So it goes quiet, so it goes legal. Lawyers arrive, briefcases and measured tones. The interviews become a chess game, every question weighted, every answer carved down to the safest possible shape. He denies knowing Anna, denies following women, denies writing notes, denies remembering the night in question. He acknowledges the car, concedes that he drove near the station, near the alley. It was on my way home, he says. You can't arrest a man for driving near an alley 20 years ago. You can when a woman vanished there and never came back, the inspector snaps. The solicitor raises a hand. My client has answered, he says calmly. You're browbeating him. Outside the interview room, the team watches on a monitor. They see every twitch, every flick of his eyes, every flex of his shoulders. They know in their gut that they have the right man. But knowing and proving are oceans apart. To cross that water, they need more than instinct and DNA. They need a narrative that can stand up under fluorescent lights in a courtroom, in front of 12 strangers, whose only connection to Anna will be a few grim photos and a voice from the witness stand. They go back to the city, to the streets he knew, to the route she walked. They reconstruct the night again, not as lines on a map, but as moving bodies in space. An officer walks with a camera from the station exit to the alley at the same time of year, same time of evening. They note how long it takes, even with traffic and crowds slightly different now. They stand at the corner where the dark saloon was captured, crawling on fuzzy old CCTV. They imagine his view, a woman ahead, alone, coat wrapped tight, unaware she's being measured. The alley mouth is a funnel of shadow, a perfect place to intercept, quick, silent, shielded from main road eyes. The scream from the flat above, the one logged as possible, is now treated as likely. They find the man who made that report in '92. He's older, retired, hair thinner, but his memory of that short, cut-off sound is razor sharp. It wasn't an argument, he tells them, voice low. It was shock, like someone surprised, hurt, grabbed. He admits the guilt he's carried, that he didn't look out, didn't call police that very second. The inspector tells him what they tell everyone in cases like this. You couldn't have known. But both of them know that's only half true. They look for any forgotten corners where a body could have been hidden even temporarily. In the early 90s, construction sites dotted the area, holes in the ground, foundations laid, concrete poured over what lay beneath. Records of building works are pulled, old plans, permits, schedules. Somewhere under office blocks and new apartments, there might be a place where Earth was disturbed at just the right time, under just the right circumstances. But city archaeology is imprecise, messy. You can't dig up half of London on the hope of bones. So they widen the search instead. They look at his life after 1992, where he worked, who he knew, any other women who vanished along his path, any unsolved assaults with a similar profile, late night, isolated patches near transport hubs, no witnesses, no clear suspect. Patterns begin to whisper again. Not loud enough to shout serial, but enough to suggest that whatever happened to Anna might not have been a single lightning strike. Predators rarely start with abduction and murder. They escalate. One file, from a few years before Anna, catches the inspector's eye. An attempted abduction a few miles away. A woman shoved toward a car, managed to twist free, scraped her palms and knees on the pavement, ran until she couldn't breathe. The description of the vehicle is close. The description of the driver is closer. The incident never led to charges. The victim moved away, changed numbers, rebuilt. Now the inspector tracks her down. She answers the door in a quiet town, decades older, wary. When the detective presents her ID and says the name Anna Ward, something like recognition and dread flashes across the woman's face. She invites the inspector in, sits in a lounge that smells of furniture polish and old books, and hears the question she knew would one day come. Can you tell me what happened to you that night? She does, step by step. The sense of being watched, the silence of the street, the arm that locked around her from behind, the breath at her ear, the push toward the open car door, the taste of panic, metallic, in her mouth. The wild animal thrashing that freed one arm, one leg, enough to twist, slam a heel down on a foot, break the grip. The man shouted, called her a word she still hates. She didn't see his face clearly, just a shape, a silhouette, an outline of features that, back then, blurred into the general category of man who'll always live in my nightmares. The inspector shows her the old sketch, then a contemporary photo of the suspect, aged but with the same underlying topology. Could this be him, she asks. The woman looks for a long time. I don't know, she says finally, voice tight. I've told myself it was too dark, that it's better not to be sure, but the way he held me, the way he pushed me, the way he smelled, like old cigarettes and car interiors. I can't forget that. Faces change, pressure doesn't. She hesitates. If he did to that girl what he tried to do to me, I'll testify. You tell me when. The inspector nods, another brushstroke added to a portrait of a man who insists he's just unlucky, just misunderstood, just a victim of over-eager police and unforgiving science. She knows the defense will attack this witness, too long ago, too dark, too uncertain. But juries listen to patterns, to lived fear, to stories that rhyme. Meanwhile, the prosecution team begins to map the case like a story they'll one day tell to 12 strangers in a box. Opening, middle, end, they can't offer the comfort of a body, of a neat crime scene. What they can offer is a web. DNA in a car at the right time in the right place. DNA on an envelope handled in the right building at the right period. A note warning women not to walk home alone. Stalking reports. A scream. A known pattern of night drives. A flight out of the country when the scientific tide turned. No full confession. No plausible, innocent explanation. They will ask the jury to follow the path of reasonable doubt and see that at some point doubts stop being reasonable and start being excuses. In the weeks before charging, the inspector visits the alley again, alone. It's narrower than it looks on maps. The walls seem to lean in. Rubbish bins line one side. The smell of damp lingers. Traffic noise from the main road is muted, as if the sound hesitates to enter. She stands where the supposed scream might have been released into cold air and thinks about lesser choices. Turn left instead of right. Wait one more minute at the crossing. Drop a set of keys and pause to pick them up. The tiny random things that can change the course of a life. Anna didn't get any of them. She knows that even a conviction won't clean this place. It will always be an absence. The best they can hope for is to put a shape around it. To say with the full weight of the law, this is where a man took something that wasn't his to take, and this is the man who did it. In his cell, the suspect lies on his bunk and stares at the ceiling. Men shout down the corridor, trade insults, gossip, jokes. He barely hears them. He's replaying his own version of events, editing, re-editing, looking for a story that might persuade, might soften. I gave her a lift and dropped her off. Maybe. I saw her but never touched her. He knows the DNA is a wall he can't kick down, so he circles around it, looking for cracks in the mortar. He blames the police for dragging up the past, blames the system, blames bad luck. He doesn't, even in the privacy of his own skull, blame himself. Outside the prison, cameras gather for the first time in years for this case. Journalists rehearse their lines. London's infamous 1992 cold case takes a dramatic step, they'll say. Suspect charged after breakthrough DNA. Commentators talk about the power of forensic science, about justice delayed, about the families of victims left in limbo. Few of them will ever stand in the alley or speak to the people who lived under its shadow, but on screens, the story briefly burns bright again. Inside a modest house, Anna's parents watch the coverage. The words are sharp, factual, charged, arraignment, historic. They've waited for this moment and dreaded it. A charge means a trial. A trial means hearing about their daughter in ways no parent ever wants to. As evidence, as a set of movements, as biological traces, as data points that tie her to a man and a car and a scream. They hold hands, knuckles white, and say what they've been saying to each other since the inspector first knocked. Whatever happens, we have to see it through. The charge finally comes down in black and white: kidnapping, murder. Even without a body, the Crown is willing to stand in court and say Anna is dead and this man killed her. The phrase "cold case solved" starts to appear in headlines prematurely, recklessly. The inspector knows better. Solved is a dangerous word. It suggests certainty, closure, endings. But this is no ending. It's a beginning of another kind of fight, one that will drag the ghosts of 1992 into a courtroom and force everyone there to listen, as that short, ordinary walk from the station to home is turned into a legal battleground, each step dissected, argued, doubted. For the city, it's a story. For the officers, it's a case. For the lawyers, it's work. For one family, it's the moment they step back into the night they never left, to finally stand in the same room as the man accused of stealing their daughter from a 10-minute walk in 20 years of their lives, and listen as he pleads, in a clear, steady voice, not guilty. The courtroom is smaller than it looks on television. No sweeping marble, no cathedral ceiling. Just 4 walls, polished wood, fluorescent light, and air so tight with expectation it might crack. The man from the alley sits in the dock wearing an off-the-rack suit that doesn't quite fit, hair combed, jaw clean-shaven. He looks like someone's quiet neighbor, someone's forgettable coworker. That's the horror of it. Monsters rarely arrive with horns. The clerk reads out the charges in a voice stripped of drama. Kidnapping, murder, December 1992, between Bank Station and a small East London flat that never saw its occupant again. Asked for his plea, he stands, places both hands on the rail, and says it clearly, almost calmly, not guilty. The words float up, bump against the ceiling, and fall heavy into the laps of everyone in the room. On the public benches, Anna Ward's parents sit side by side, faces lined by time and loss. They've heard those words for years in different forms. We don't know. We can't prove it. We have no body. This version is louder, formal, entered into record, a challenge. The jury files in. Ordinary people pulled from ordinary lives. Office workers, a teacher, a nurse, a retired bus driver. They carry umbrellas, lunch boxes, the faint damp of London rain clinging to coats. They take their seats, glance at the dock, glance at the family, glance at the judge. They don't know it yet, but for the next weeks, they will live inside 1992. The city, the route, the scream. Their job, decide if the man in the suit is the black hole that swallowed a young woman and 20 years of answers. The prosecution rises first, no theatrics, just a barrister in a dark gown who knows that in a case this old, every word has to land like a nail. He steps to the center, looks at the jury, and starts not with science, not with DNA, but with a walk. On the evening of the 3rd of December, 1992, he says, a 26-year-old woman named Anna Ward left work, took the underground, and began a 10-minute walk home. She never made it. This case is about what happened in those 10 minutes, and about the man who turned a safe, familiar journey into the last walk of her life. He paints the route in their heads, the station barriers, the escalator, the swell of commuters, the December chill. He puts them there, coat collars up, breath smoking in the air. Then he brings in the car, the dark saloon creeping along a side street, breaking near the alley mouth. He tells them about the scream heard by the man at his window, about the anonymous call. It wasn't the alley, it was the car. About the note shoved under a door. You shouldn't walk home alone, someone's watching. He doesn't say serial predator, not yet, but he lets the pattern simmer. Then he speaks the new language that didn't exist when the case was born: DNA, profiles, familial matches, the national database. He tells them about the partial profile from the car seat, the ghost data that sat for years until technology caught up, then reached out and grabbed a name from the present, the defendant's son. The blood link that pointed directly back to the man who once smiled through an interview and walked away. He lays it out like a headline: old fibers, new science, shocking match. He tells them how they found the envelope scrap from the building, how they squeezed a partial DNA profile out of it too, matched it to the car, then to the man now sitting 12 feet from them. The same genetic fingerprint, he says. In the vehicle we say was used to abduct Anna Ward and on paper handled in her building at the relevant time, and it belongs to him. The jurors glance almost as one at the dock. The accused looks back, expression flat, hands folded. If he feels the heat, he doesn't show it. The prosecution keeps going, building layers. The earlier stalking report, the woman followed in the car months before, the attempted abduction in another borough, same method, same kind of vehicle, same style of approach, witnesses who tried to forget, now dragged into daylight, the sudden emigration after database rules changed. Ladies and gentlemen, the barrister says, we will show you that this is not a random man. This is not bad luck or mistaken identity. This is a predator who hunted that route at that time in that car and took his chance when Anna Ward walked into his path. When he finally sits, the air feels stripped. The judge thanks him, then turns to the defense. Their barrister stands, smooth, practiced. His job is not to tell a better story. His job is to make the existing story fall apart. He faces the jury, hands light on the lectern. You have just heard a compelling narrative, he says, carefully constructed over many years. But a narrative is not proof. In this case, there is no body, no eyewitness who saw any attack, no confession, no blood, no weapon. Nothing, in fact, that directly places my client with Anna Ward at any time. The prosecution will ask you to take circumstantial evidence and speculation and build from it a verdict of murder. We will ask you to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if, as we say, it leads away from my client. He pokes at the weaknesses, the age of the case, memories faded, files lost, evidence collected under standards that now seem archaic. DNA, he says, is powerful, but it is not magic. That car, my client owned it. He drove people in it, friends, neighbors, colleagues. We say that if his DNA is in his own car, that is hardly surprising. As for the envelope, hundreds of people touched surfaces in that building. We will ask, how was it stored? Was it contaminated? Can you be sure beyond reasonable doubt that it tells you anything about guilt? He gestures subtly toward the dock. What we know is this. In 1992, the police looked at my client. They interviewed him. They searched his home and his vehicle. Then they released him because they had nothing. 2 decades later, with pressure mounting to solve a notorious cold case, they go back, armed with new science, and decide the man they couldn't convict then must be the killer now. Instead of asking, what does the evidence really show, they asked, how can we make him fit? That is a dangerous starting point for any investigation. It is an even more dangerous starting point for a murder trial. They're not just selling doubt, they're selling suspicion of the process itself. You will hear from frightened witnesses, from grieving parents, from officers who have spent years haunted by this file, he says. You will feel sympathy, you will feel anger. The law asks you to feel something harder, discipline, the discipline to say, is this enough? The battle lines are drawn, shock versus skepticism, pattern versus possibility. The judge instructs, neutral, that the burden is on the Crown, that the defendant must be presumed innocent, that DNA is evidence but not gospel. Then the trial truly begins. The first witnesses are scene setters. A retired CCTV technician walks them through grainy footage from Bank Station. The jurors lean toward the screens as the video plays. Black and white crowds, a timestamp in the corner. There she is, Anna Ward, frozen mid-step, bag on shoulder, scarf tight, eyes focused on the way out. The camera doesn't know its own significance, it just records, unimpressed. This is the last confirmed image we have of Miss Ward, the prosecutor says. The witness nods. The defense doesn't cross-examine. There's nothing to argue with pixels. Next comes the man from the flat, the one who heard the scream. He shuffles to the witness box, hand trembling slightly as he takes the oath. The prosecutor asks about that night, how late, how dark, what he heard. A sound, the man says. Short, like someone surprised or scared, not like a row, sharper, and then nothing. Why didn't he look? Why didn't he phone immediately? It's London, he says, shame in every syllable. You hear things. You tell yourself it's nothing. You don't want to get involved. I've been thinking about that for 20 years. The defense stands and does what they must. You didn't see anything, did you? The barrister asks gently. You can't say who made that sound. You can't even say now precisely what time you heard it. Is that fair? Yes, the witness whispers. That's fair. So the scream stays what it always was, a ghost in the timeline, probable, powerful, uncertain. Then there is the woman from months before, the one with the car crawling behind her. She tells her story with a steadiness she didn't know she had. The dark street, the engine humming at her back, the panic building in her throat. I felt like prey, she says simply. They show her the old composite, the modern photo. Can you say for certain that the man who followed you was the defendant? The prosecutor asks. She hesitates. The room holds its breath. I can't say for certain, she answers. It was dark. It was fast. But when I saw his picture in the paper about this case, I felt sick. because the way he holds himself, the way he stands, it brought me back to that night. Whether it's memory or fear, I don't know. But I've lived for years thinking if I'd tripped, if I'd dropped my keys, if I'd been a bit slower, I might have been her. The defense slices in. You've read about this case, the barrister says. You've seen coverage. Do you accept that your memory may have been colored by what you later learned? Yes, she says, but the fear is the same. Fear, the judge will later remind the jury, is not proof, but fear leaves footprints. The biggest moment of the trial's early days comes when the forensic scientist takes the stand. She's calm, precise, the kind of person who trusts numbers more than stories. The prosecution walks her through the chain of custody. The old car fibers, the envelope scrap, the extraction, the profiles, the match. For the benefit of the jury, the prosecutor says, can you explain in simple terms what a DNA match means in this case? She does. Carefully, the odds ratios, the probability maths. In lay terms, she concludes, it is extremely unlikely that these DNA profiles belong to anyone other than the defendant or a close male relative. We have already accounted for his son's profile. That leaves the defendant himself. The defense pounces. Doctor, you would agree, wouldn't you, that these samples are old, collected before modern contamination protocols? Yes, she says. And that over time DNA degrades? Yes. And that partial profiles leave more room for interpretation? Yes. He smiles faintly. So, you cannot say with absolute certainty, can you, that there has been no contamination, no error, no degradation? She looks at the jury, not the barrister. In science, we rarely speak of absolute certainty, she says. What I can say is that every step was documented, every modern test was performed with controls, and in my expert opinion, the profiles we obtained are reliable and match the defendant to an extremely high degree of probability. Probability, the barrister repeats, not certainty. Probability beyond what most of us encounter in daily decision-making, she replies. If you were told the odds of something were 1 in a billion, would you bet your life against it? The judge cuts in gently, steering them back to questions and answers, but the exchange hangs in the air. Numbers versus doubt, statistics versus what if. Outside, the press boils. DNA expert delivers bombshell, one headline blares. Defense attacks flawed forensic process, counters another. Commentators argue on talk shows about what beyond reasonable doubt really means in a world where science speaks in probabilities and defense lawyers speak in what-ifs. Inside the courtroom, Anna's parents sit through it all, anchored to their bench. They listen to their daughter turned into data, height, weight, last known movements, inferred time of death. They listen to her absence discussed like a technical problem. They watch the man in the dock lean to whisper to his solicitor now and then. An ordinary gesture that feels obscene given the context. He's alive. He has a voice. Their daughter has none. On the day they're called, they walk to the witness box like people walking into a storm. The prosecutor asks them about Anna, about her life, her routines, her plans, not to prove character. This isn't that kind of trial, but to show the jury what was taken. Her mother talks about the unfinished birthday present, the diary open on the table, the way Anna always phoned if she was late. Her father talks about the knock on the door, the station visits, the long, slow erosion of hope. Do you believe your daughter would have disappeared voluntarily? The prosecutor asks. No, her father says, voice breaking. She loved her life. She had everything ahead of her. Someone took that from her. The defense declines to cross-examine. There's nothing to gain by bruising grieving parents in front of a jury. Still, the judge reminds the panel later, sympathy is not evidence. They must decide on facts, not feelings. Easy to say in legal language. Harder to do with a mother's trembling hand still in view. Day after day, the trial grinds forward. Hidden corners of 1992 are scraped clean and presented under glass. Maps, photos, diagrams of street layouts as they were then. Old officers take the stand, some of them drawing pensions now, remembering long nights, early mistakes. One of them, the retired detective who carried the case in his head for years, testifies with a tired clarity. I always thought we had the right man, he admits, nodding slightly toward the dock. We just couldn't get the evidence we needed. I'm glad the science has finally caught up. Defense, so you formed an opinion early on and held to it for 20 years. Would you accept that early suspicion can influence how evidence is interpreted? He pauses. It can, he concedes. But the evidence we have now is stronger than anything we had then. If I were still serving, I'd be sitting where the current team sits, making the same call. The jury watches, listens, slowly builds their own internal maps. Some nights they go home, close their eyes, and see the alley, the car, the timestamp in the corner of a CCTV frame. For them, Anna Ward isn't a stranger anymore. She's the woman who didn't get to finish her day. The weight of that knowledge starts to settle. They know soon they'll be asked to decide if they believe the man in the dock is the missing piece between the station and the silence. Meanwhile, London continues outside, barely pausing. Trains run, cafes open, people stream through Bank Station without looking up at the cameras that once caught a woman mid-step. Life layers itself over old fear. But inside that wood-paneled room, the past and the present are trapped together, circling, waiting for a verdict that will either stamp solved onto a 30-year-old mystery or send it back to its box marked unsolved, this time with a new word attached: acquitted. The days blur. Same courtroom, same wooden benches, same faces in the dock and in the public gallery. But under the surface, pressure builds. The prosecution has laid out its case. Roots, screams, cars, DNA, patterns. The defense has thrown shadow over each light. Memory fades. Evidence degrades. Science is probability, not certainty. The jury sits still, but you can feel the weight accumulating behind their eyes. There is one question left hanging in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Will he speak? He doesn't have to. The law doesn't force him. He can sit in that glass box, expression flat, hands folded, and let his barrister fight on his behalf. But there's ego involved, pride, the need to tell his own story, to push back against the narrative that paints him as a hunter who turned East London streets into his own private hunting ground. When the defense finally announces that the defendant will, in fact, take the stand, a small crackle passes through the room. Reporters' pens tighten around notebooks. Anna's mother's hand finds her husband's and grips hard. He walks to the witness box with a studied calm, like a man entering an office meeting, not a person whose name is being wrapped around words like kidnapping and murder. He swears the oath, voice steady. For a moment there is silence. The cameras aren't here, no filming in court, but in living rooms across the city, people will later picture this scene anyway, fill in the gaps with their own idea of what a killer looks like when he tells the world he isn't. His own barrister starts, voice soft, controlled. Can you tell the court a little about your life in 1992, he asks. The man in the witness box nods. He talks about his job then, the late shifts, the nights spent driving. He talks about the area, familiar streets, familiar corners. He admits owning the car. He admits driving near the station, near the alley. It was on my way home, he says again, shaping the route into something innocent. Those roads were busy. I wasn't the only one there. Did you know Anna Ward? His barrister asks. No, he says, looking straight at the jury. I never met her. I didn't kidnap her. I didn't hurt her. I didn't kill her. I am sorry for what happened to her family, but I had nothing to do with it. The words are neat, almost polished. He's had time to rehearse them, 20 years of imagining this moment, perhaps. He denies writing notes, sliding them under doors, denies following women, waiting in cars. Any presence of his DNA in his own vehicle, he says, is obvious. On the envelope fragment, I lived in that building. I might have helped carry mail, handed someone a letter. It was a long time ago. Why did you leave the country? His barrister asks, anticipating the prosecution's frame. For work, he answers. I had an opportunity. A friend helped me find a job abroad. I wasn't fleeing anything. No one said I was a suspect. I wasn't wanted by police. I was trying to build a life. The story is simple. Too simple. A life of work, routine, coincidence. No malice, no predation. Just a man who drove the wrong routes at the wrong times and is now paying for someone else's crime. When the defense sits, it feels like the air drops a degree. The prosecutor rises. No smile, no theatrics, just a stack of papers, a pen, and questions sharpened over months. Mr. Ward, he begins, using the name deliberately, connecting him to the box that bears Anna's. You say you lived in the same building as Miss Ward? At the time, yes, the man replies. You say you may have handled mail, helped neighbors, touched envelopes, is that right? Yes. You say you drove past the station in the alley because it was on your way home? Yes. You say you never met Miss Ward? Yes. The prosecutor nods slowly as if willing to accept all of this, file it away, move on. He doesn't. Let's talk about your car, he says. You agree that forensic testing using techniques that did not exist in 1992 identified your DNA from a sample taken from the driver's seat? Yes, it was my car, of course. And you agree that a sample taken from that same car, not the seat, but interior fibers, produced a partial DNA profile that linked to your son years later? The man hesitates. That's what you're saying, he answers. It's what the science is saying, the prosecutor replies evenly. Your son's profile led investigators back to your family, to you, a man originally flagged in 1992 and then released. Can you provide the jury with any innocent explanation for why your DNA, and by extension your genetic line, would be present in a car independently connected to a missing person case in a time window that aligns precisely with her disappearance? Silence stretches, the defendant's jaw flexes. It was my car, he repeats. I drove it. Lots of people were in it. I gave lifts. Friends sat there. Co-workers sat there. I had it for years. You're trying to turn something ordinary into something sinister. The prosecutor steps a fraction closer. We are not talking about years, Mr. Ward. We are talking about one night, one time frame, one victim. On that night, on those streets, near that alley, your car is captured on CCTV crawling, not passing through, crawling. You were questioned. You lied about how often you drove there. You told officers you rarely used the route, yet your petrol receipts, your work logs, your neighbors all say otherwise. Why did you lie? The man dampens his lips. I was nervous. Police were accusing me. People say things under pressure. People do, the prosecutor agrees. Killers do, especially. Let's talk about the note. He lifts a plastic sleeve, the photographed fragment. You told this court you might have handed someone a letter, casually touched an envelope. Our forensic expert testified that the likelihood of unrelated handling resulting in the specific DNA profile we see on this evidence is extremely low. What neighborly good deed, precisely, were you performing when you deposited your DNA here? The defendant looks at the exhibit like it's a trick card. I don't remember that envelope, he says. It was decades ago. Convenient, the prosecutor says softly. The defense objects. The judge sustains, tells the jury to ignore the commentary, not the question. The prosecutor changes tack. Mr. Ward, did you know that 6 months before Anna Ward's disappearance, a woman reported being followed from the same station along a similar route by a man in a car like yours? I heard that here, he answers. Did you know she will testify that when she saw your photograph in connection with this case, she felt physically sick because it brought her back to that night? People imagine things, he says. They read stories, see photos, and their minds fill in the gaps. Did you attempt to pull her into your car? The prosecutor asks, voice suddenly razor sharp. No, he snaps, I did not. The prosecutor doesn't blink. And years before that, another woman, same pattern, same kind of vehicle, escaped an attempted abduction. Are they all imagining? All reading the same script you didn't write? I don't know these people, he says. You are painting me as some monster. I was a driver. I worked nights. I drove near a station. That's it. The prosecutor lets the word monster hang, then steps aside. You left this country not long after the national DNA database expanded, he says quietly. Did you know that your type of offense, violent crime, would qualify you for sampling under new rules? I left for work, he repeats, knuckles white on the rail. Did you or did you not tell a friend before leaving that it was time to get away from this place before they start digging up old ghosts? The man freezes. His lawyer objects again, demands a sidebar. The judge calls both counsel forward, voices low, white noise to the rest of the room. After a moment, they return. The objection is overruled. The question stands. I might have said something like that, the defendant concedes, forced. I was joking. Joking, the prosecutor echoes. About ghosts, about digs, during the period in which cold cases were being reopened and forensic science was crawling back through the archives of men like you. I am not men like me, he almost shouts, control slipping. I didn't do this. The outburst hangs sharp in the air. The judge leans forward. Mr. Ward, she says, voice calm but iron, you will control yourself in this courtroom. He sits back, breathing fast, eyes ticker-taping across the jury. He knows he's cracked a little. The prosecutor knows it too. No further questions, the barrister says, satisfied. He returns to his seat. The defense declines re-examination for the moment. The jury has seen what they needed to see. Not a confession, not a slip that spells out guilt in capital letters, but a man under strain, a story full of holes held together by repetition and denial. Outside, papers run with what they can glean. Defendant clashes with prosecutor in tense exchange. Alley suspect denies knowing Anna. The phrase London 1992 cold case solved starts appearing in rolling news banners again, tidy and premature. As if an arrest, a trial, a DNA profile were enough to turn decades of confusion into a neat ending. Inside, everyone knows better. Juries are complicated. People bring their own ghosts to the box. The judge's summing up looms. Before that, though, the prosecution calls one final witness, not a parent, not a scientist, a woman from the cold case unit. The detective inspector who pulled the box off the shelf, who walked the route in the rain, who watched the DNA peaks line up on a screen. She takes the stand in her dark suit, oath taken with no fuss. The prosecutor leads her through the reopening of the case, the review, the decision to retest evidence, not to ask her to speculate on guilt, that's not her role, but to show the jury that this wasn't some rogue crusade or witch hunt. It was methodical, controlled, reviewed. She speaks in clean, measured sentences, wary of legal landmines. Did you go into this with the intention of proving the defendant's guilt? The prosecutor asks. No, she says. We went into it with the intention of finding the truth. The evidence led us back to him. The defense stands. Detective Inspector, you were aware, were you not, that this case received media attention, that the term cold case was used, that the public had an appetite for resolution? Yes, she says. And you were under pressure, resource constraints, public interest to get results from historical cases? We are always under pressure, she replies, but pressure doesn't change DNA. Pressure can change people, he says. can influence what they see in DNA and notes in witness testimony. Would you accept that possibility? I would accept that humans are fallible, she says. That's why we document everything, why we present all of it here under oath for you and the jury to examine. We don't ask anyone to trust our instincts. We ask them to look at the same evidence and draw their own conclusions. Her gaze doesn't flicker. The defense can't shake her. She steps down feeling no triumph, just exhaustion. She has brought them as far as she can. The rest will belong to 12 strangers. When the evidence is finally closed, the judge addresses the jury. Her voice is steady, almost soothing, the sound of legal structure wrapping itself around chaos. She explains the charges again, the burden of proof, the standard of beyond reasonable doubt. She reminds them of the gaps: no body, no direct eyewitness, no confession. She reminds them of the framework. Circumstantial evidence can convict if it forms a coherent, compelling picture. She tells them to put out of their minds anything they may have read, seen, heard outside this room. You are not here to solve all the mysteries of this case, she says. You are here to decide whether the Crown has proved, to the high standard required by law, that this defendant kidnapped and murdered Anna Ward. Then, after weeks of testimony, maps, diagrams, photographs, numbers, tears, denials, the jury is sent out. 12 people disappear into a private room with a kettle, some chairs, stacks of notes, and the heaviest decision they will ever make. The door closes. The lock clicks. The entire case, 3 decades and counting, suddenly rests on the other side of that thin barrier. In the corridor outside, reporters wait. In the public gallery, Anna's parents sit rigid, hands clasped, eyes unfocused. The defendant is led back to the cells below, footsteps echoing. In the cold case unit's offices, screens are minimized, files left open, work paused. Every person who ever worked this case, who ever sat under fluorescent light staring at a map of streets in red circles, feels the same sensation, a held breath, stretching, threatening to snap. London moves on above them. People buy lunch, check emails, step on and off the trains at Bank Station. A new generation walks the 10-minute route to flats that no longer remember the woman who never made it home. But in one room, 12 strangers sit around a table, their faces a little paler than they were in the morning, and say the defendant's name out loud for the first time, attached to the words guilty and not guilty, weighing each against the evidence, against their own doubt, against the cold reality that whatever they decide, somewhere between a station exit and an alley mouth, on a winter night in 1992, something happened that no verdict will ever entirely explain. The jury takes 2 days. 48 hours of arguments, diagrams, replayed evidence, raised voices, and long silences. Somewhere behind that locked door, 12 versions of 1992 battle it out. 12 personal definitions of reasonable doubt. By the morning of the 3rd day, the court staff can feel it in the air, the vibration that means a decision has finally been reached. The message moves fast. Verdict. One word, quiet, metallic, passed from officer to officer, down corridors, into offices. Phones go silent. In the gallery, Anna's parents sit forward, hands laced. The inspector who reopened the case takes a seat in the back, expression unreadable. The man from the alley walks in flanked by guards, face calm, jaw set. He sits, eyes forward. The foreperson of the jury rises. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed? The judge asks. We have, the foreperson says. Time compresses. Everything that happened, every note, every test tube, every sleepless night in a windowless room shrinks into a single breath. On the count of murder, the judge says, voice even, how do you find the defendant? The pause is short, but it feels endless. Guilty. The word hits like a gunshot, echoing off wood and stone. The gallery erupts, not in cheers, not in chaos, but in an audible exhale. Anna's mother collapses forward into her husband's arms, shaking with silent sobs. The inspector closes her eyes once tightly, as if to anchor herself to the sound. Reporters bolt for the exits. Downstairs, someone types the headline that will spread within minutes. London 1992 cold case solved. Justice after 30 years. In the dock, the man barely reacts. His mouth twitches, his eyes narrow, but he stays still. It's not disbelief, it's fury, masked by habit. The judge thanks the jury for their service, dismisses them with the standard cautions, then turns to sentencing. You were questioned in 1992, she says, voice slow, deliberate. You denied involvement. You watched as a family suffered for decades. Advances in science have revealed what your lies could not. You stalked a woman through familiar streets. You took her from them, and you buried the truth beneath a city that kept on living. You robbed her family of peace and this community of safety. For that, you will serve a sentence of life imprisonment. The gavel drops. Guards move. He stands. For the first time, his voice cracks, hoarse, half-whispered. You can't prove it. You can't prove what happened. You've got numbers, not truth. It's half confession, half denial, the kind of protest that only comes when the walls finally close in. The officers take him by the arms, lead him through the side door. The latch clicks, he's gone. Outside, the courthouse steps become a flood of microphones and cameras. The inspector faces them only once, briefly. "This case was never cold," she says. "It was waiting. We just needed the tools to hear what it was already telling us." Then she walks away, coat whipping in the wind, the roar of questions following her down the steps. For Anna's parents, the verdict lands like the end of a storm, not calm, but exhaustion. They stand before the cameras too, hand in hand, the same line they've practiced for weeks. "We finally know who took her. Now we just want to find her." They don't talk about closure. There is none. Only truth, and the ache that comes with it. Back in the city, the alley looks the same. Narrow, damp, the bricks still stained, the streetlights still flickering. People walk past without noticing. But if you stop, if you stand still long enough, you can feel the layers of time there. The echoes of footsteps, the hum of distant traffic, the ghost of a scream swallowed by rain. The police tape is long gone, but the place itself remembers. The inspector returns there one last time before closing the file. She stands at the mouth of the alley, coat collar up, eyes scanning the length of it. Somewhere, beneath years of asphalt and concrete, Anna Ward still waits. No excavation order will ever come. The city won't tear itself open for a ghost. But in the space between the buildings, in the silence that lives here, you can still feel her. The inspector whispers something only she can hear. Maybe it's apology, maybe it's promise. Then she turns, walks away, and lets the fog swallow her. The case file is sealed again, this time stamped closed. In the archive, among thousands of other names and numbers, it rests, heavy with the weight of decades and the faint scent of dust and justice. And if you listen closely, somewhere under the hum of the city, you can almost hear the echo of that verdict, the cold, measured voice of the foreperson cutting through 30 years of static. Guilty. It doesn't bring peace, but it brings an ending. And in London, that's as close to justice as a ghost ever gets.